Hello everyone, I am Vivek. A very warm welcome to all our attendees at our exciting webinar series, Infinity 2020. Digitalization of supply chain management has been a key focus area of Expedient since last 1.5 years. Today, for us, digitalization is not just a buzzword, but it is part and parcel of Expedient 3.0. Expedient has evolved as the word digital itself. If I turn the clock back by more than a decade, going digital meant scan the paper, store the document digitally on a central database, avoid paper, don't print, don't maintain documents in physical files. Today, the word digital has a different meaning altogether. It means seamless data exchange electronically with business community. The business community can be supply chain or our own employees. Today's session, we will focus upon the digital supply chain portal and making invoice processing simpler by going electronic. The entire session is scheduled for 90 minutes with a block of time allocated for Q&A at the end of session. Let me today introduce you our guest speaker, Anna Pearson and Don Hillman. I am also joined by my colleagues, Rishabh Khatri and Ankit De. While Anna and Don will share their experiences, Rishabh Khatri will cover the digital supply chain portal, and Ankit will take us through electronic invoice processing. Let me now introduce Anna Pearson. Anna is procurement manager in J&J Bentley. Her key responsibilities are managing material suppliers and subcontractors. She has been instrumental in rolling out the supply chain portal in J&J Bentley. J&J Bentley has been using the portal to its full potential for more than a year. Without taking much of your time, I will hand it over to Anna now. Over to you, Anna.
Thanks, Vivek, and hi, everybody. So before I give an overview of how the portal has benefited us, I'll start with a quick introduction to J&J Bentley. J&J Bentley is part of the global management, engineering and development consultancy Mott MacDonald, offering our clients full feasibility, design and construction services throughout the UK. As a business, we directly employ over 1,400 people, and this includes our large site-based weekly resource. We turn over in excess of 285 million, which is delivered through our water utilities design and build business, Mott MacDonald Bentley, our environmental design and build business, Jeremy Ben Associates Bentley, and directly by J&J Bentley. A number of our clients are shown here on this slide. So let's move on to our journey so far with the supply chain portal. Our initial trialing of the portal commenced in May 2018, and since then we've rolled out the portal across our supply chain with subcontract material and plant suppliers, and to date we have registered 285. We've submitted over 7,000 inquiries for which suppliers have provided the quotations via the portal, and this has saved us approximately 90 days of buyer's time as the quotations are automatically pulled through to the price comparison in the inquiry. We've submitted over 7,000 orders and 13,000 subcontract variations through the portal. We also continue to see an increase in the number of variations and applications submitted by the suppliers, which again will save a considerable amount of quantity surveyors' time. The supply chain portal has enabled a more collaborative way of working with our supply chain. By allowing suppliers to view and contribute to our procurement process Through flexible but controlled access, it has brought efficiencies for both parties. The portal gives suppliers the ability to view inquiries, orders, and payments and submit company information, quotations, invoices, and applications for payment through one platform at any one time. The real sync of this data between the portal and Expedient and automation of processes has brought a significant reduction in our non-value adding time within the procurement process. Further developments are set to bring even more benefits and encourage a closer working relationship with suppliers. Next slide, please, Rishabh. So on this final slide, I've included some snippets of the feedback we've received from our suppliers using the portal. The feedback from our supply chain over the last couple of years has been fundamental in the development of the portal. As you can see from some of the comments, we've reached a position where the overall response is extremely positive and suppliers are also benefit from the portal functions. That brings me to the end of my section and a quick overview of the benefits the portal has brought to us at J.M. Bentley, but thank you for your time and I'll hand back to Vivek.
Thank you very much, Anna. I will now request Rishabh to take over and take us through the journey of supply chain portal through Expedient. Rishabh, over to you.
Thank you, Vivek. So good morning, everyone who has joined us from the UK, and good afternoons for others joining us from Middle East and India. So today we will be looking into digital supply chain portals. We'll start with an overview of today's presentation. We'll start with the overview of today's presentation. So first we'll go through what are digital supply chain portals. The next thing in our agenda is why is there a need for supply chain portal? And next and lastly is how is Expedient supply chain portal changing the landscape of construction and engineering industry? So in this slide, we will look into digital supply chain portal, what the digital supply chain portal are. So digital supply chain portal are web-based platform that provide buyers and suppliers with a single access point to information. This streamlines the collaboration between the buyer and the supplier and minimizes document handling, thus reducing potential fraud. This in turn means that there are more faster and accurate flow of information with lesser error. It automates business processes, improve efficiencies, and ensure transparency of supplier transactions. So now the next obvious query in everyone's mind will be, what is the need for these portals? To give you a unique viewpoint, the construction and engineering industry is expected to be 8 trillion by 2030, mostly driven by India, China, and US. It also employs 7% of world's working population. That's more than 500 million people. Yet, it's the least digitalized industry in the world, second only to agriculture and hunting. If this wasn't bad enough, the humankind was hit by a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. This changed the way we interacted with each other, and social distancing and quarantine became a household term. This made it next to impossible to have any in-person meeting for the better part of this year. Not only has it affected how we interact, it has also changed how company works. And one of the key impact areas is the supply chain management. It's not anymore a case where you ring up a supply chain to chase them for a compliance document. Gone are those days. This is why everyone needs to adapt to the new normal of working, which is digital. Now, after learning about portal and their need in construction and engineering industry, it's time we dive into how Expedient is helping the industry to digitalize the interaction with our supply chain. Expedient supply chain bridges the gap between Expedient users and supply chain to enable streamlined collaboration of flow of information. New suppliers and subcontractors can register through portal and once approved can link their relevant pre-qualification documents in the portal itself. Expedient users, on the other hand, can receive these registration requests and other requests from existing suppliers and subcontractors. The digital workflows ensure that various tasks can be assigned to supply chain and vice versa. One of the example of such task is the request for quotation for supply of material sent to a supplier. Lastly, both supply chain and expedient users can publish various documentation. For example, a subcontractor can publish insurance and compliance documentation, while expedient user can publish company specific documentation. This 360-degree interaction between expedient users and supply chain ensures efficiencies are achieved through smoother transaction and transparency in the process. Now we'll go through how Expedient Supply Chain Portal helps user execute, manage, and analyze supply chain. So we'll start with execute. Let us go through the workflow first, and then we'll dive into each aspect in detail. So Expedient users can publish requests for quotations to multiple suppliers or subcontractors. Once the suppliers and subcontractor accept the request for quote, they can digitally submit the quotation via the portal. Once the quotes are approved and order is placed, Expedient users can publish these orders and variation onto the portal. They can be viewed, accepted, and downloaded from the portal itself. Subcontractors can raise variation for any additional scope of work through the portal itself. Further, subcontractors can also within the portal digitally submit the application for work done. Suppliers, on the other hand, can view the status of invoices and revert back to any query raised against them. And lastly, expedient users can publish remittance advice which suppliers and subcontractors can view and download. Now let us look into each of these elements in detail. Expedient users can issue requests for quotation for supply of material or services to multiple suppliers and subcontractor in one single go. They can further download the request along with any relevant documentation which was part of the original request. Suppliers and subcontractors in turn respond digitally via the portal that gets captured real time in Expedient Core application. They can also attach any additional documentation as part of the code. Expedient users can further issue orders and variations which the supply chain can accept and download a copy within the portal. Further, subcontractors can raise a request for variation to the original scope of work. The variation can also be created against an agreed price list, thus saving time to compile the variation. Subcontractors will also be able to apply for the work done and check for the status of application through the portal. This streamlines the flow of information and further removes any manual capturing it in Expedient. Now, one of the most common type of calls an accounts department will get from a supplier is to check the status of the invoice. This costs money to the company, and all of this mitigates through Expedient digital supply chain portal, where suppliers can go to the portal and check the exact status of the invoice. The functionality is not limited just to checking the invoice status. Suppliers can also upload invoices and credit note from the portal itself. And lastly, if there are any queries raised against the invoice, the suppliers can revert back to the query from the portal, thus saving on endless phone calls and email exchange. This flow of information ensures the payment days are reduced and company can achieve faster payments to their supply chain. Lastly, Expedient users can publish remittance advice where the amount of money paid in the payment run along with invoice-wise breakup is provided. This helps reduce n number of calls pertaining to a lump of money paid to a supplier or a subcontractor which they cannot reconcile. Now, after going through the execute side of things, let us see how we manage and analyze the supply chain in the portal. So we'll take you through the workflow again. So there's a new suppliers and subcontractors registration can be done digitally in the portal. We'll also go through how compliance management is achieved via the portal. We'll also look how portal approval and notification management ensures streamlined process and exchange of information. We'll explore the reporting capabilities like project exposure reports. And lastly, we'll talk about digital audit trail and other KPI reports. So now a new supplier and a subcontractor can register through the portal, thus removing the need for sending pre-qualification form through email. Their requests will be intelligently flown through our automatic workflows to reach to an expedient user who can review and approve them. Once approved, suppliers and subcontractors can utilize the portal to upload all the pre-qualification documents. A key element in supply chain management is the compliance management of suppliers and subcontractors. It's really important they have relevant compliance certificate or insurance before delivering a certain type of material or carrying out specific work. Expedient's digital supply chain portal allows supply chain to add and amend these compliance documents, thus further helping saving thousands of dollars companies spend every year on third-party risk management softwares. Approvals are tightly integrated with each activity within the supply chain portal, from approvals pertaining to a new registration of a supplier to approving an application for payment. The system is highly configurable with two-way notification, ensuring the expedient user nor the supplier miss any key notification. The inbuilt notification also notifies suppliers on key trigger points like notifying them if an insurance or certificate is about to expire. Now we'll come to analyst side of things. One of the critical analysis in a project is to understand the exposure the project is with potential liabilities due to missing compliance or insurance documentation of the supply chain. Imagine just one fatal accident at site with a subcontractor who has incomplete documentation is a lawsuit waiting. Expedient provide a comprehensive analysis of exposure by supplier to a project based on missing compliance document. Lastly, one of the major points in this day and age is to be able to have a digital audit of the transaction. Expedient Supply Chain Portal ensures full audit of transaction from the portal to the core application and vice versa. This removes any ambiguity of any dispute. You and your auditors will love and appreciate the digital trail. Along with this, various KPIs can be written. An example of such is vendor supplier collaboration report, where analysis like what's the usual response time of supplier or subcontractor for quotation sent to them. This will help companies deriving key decision-making points and the efficiencies. So finally, I will end today's presentation by providing you a summary of corporate benefits. So inbuilt digital workflow ensures smoother transfer of information, higher efficiencies and faster processing with lesser errors, complete transparency with your supply chain, and inbuilt notification ensures better visibility and streamlined communication. That's all from my side. Thank you. I hand it over to Vivek.
Thank you, Rishabh. Now, I would like to introduce everyone our second guest speak, Don Hillman. Our association with Don goes more than a decade back, when Tamdown Group associated with us for their process automation. Dawn is currently Financial Director in TriConnect Limited and eSmart Networks Limited. She has been the force behind successful rollout of e-invoicing system at TriConnect Limited in a very quick time frame of just 2 months. Dawn will share her experience on e-invoicing. Without taking much of your time, I hand it over to you. Dawn, please.
Thank you for that, Vivek. Welcome everybody to the journey that TriConnect has been on so far through the e-invoicing experience. TriConnect is a multi-utility business established in 2011, and our turnover now exceeds 40 million a year. We work with our clients from when they first consider purchasing a site until the last connection is made. This includes providing technical support for proposals, designs, legals and planning. We work with developers to connect gas, electricity, fibre, water and electric vehicle charging points to new residential and commercial properties. Specialist teams are qualified to deliver the different services working to industry guidelines. TriConnect provide a full infrastructure for services on sites through to the connection to the house or commercial property. It's a complex and evolving sector and we have earned a unique reputation for customer service. We work from 3 offices serving the South East, the Midlands and South West. This gives us coverage from Kent to Cambridgeshire to Oxfordshire and on to Devon. Our Bristol office also serves Wales. TriConnect's aim is to be a national business covering all of the UK. Our average number of active contracts is around 250 across over 190 clients. In our last year, we have delivered over 19,000 connections to our customers. As Finance Director, I'm keen to ensure that the processes in the office are efficient to support the delivery on site. One set of information is a key aim, and we are working with Expedient to achieve this. We have an agreed programme in place to expand our use of Expedient, which was put together after spending time with the Expedient team understanding our operating model. Our first project was EInvoicing, which we went live with in July of this year. TriConnect processes over 25,000 invoices in a year, so over 2,000 to process in a month. Our deadlines are tight, with a team of just 2 people managing the supplier process from invoice receipt to payment. Invoices are received in several ways, including by post and email. Each invoice was then manually booked into the system by one of the team. We had made a first step of not printing invoices which were received by email and attaching a copy of the invoice in the system in our journey to achieve greater efficiency in the process. Query management is a time-consuming part of processing invoices. It can easily double the amount of time each invoice takes to process and involves at least double handling of an invoice, if not more. Queries were dealt with by email or paper being passed around the office and managed via spreadsheets. Time spent on processing an invoice, if straightforward, was between 4 and 5 minutes. This time could easily double, if not treble, should an invoice have a query. Our expectations of e-invoicing was to reduce workload by at least 50%, have less resilience on emails and post, and to improve management of queries. The planning, testing and training carried out with Expedient was key to the success of implementing e-invoicing. The decision was taken that a phased rollout would be the best approach. TriConnect has 5 major suppliers who contribute 50% of the invoices we receive each month. We approached each supplier and agreed when they would start using the process. The changes for them were minor, involving a new email address to send the invoice to and ensuring the format of the invoice was correct. We've not had any issues with suppliers over the change. Internally, the largest impact was on the accounts team, and there was great excitement when we saw the first batch of invoices arrive into the system. 2 months analysis has shown a significant benefit to TriConnect from e-invoicing. The 5 suppliers we targeted are now 100% automated for invoicing. 50% of the invoices we receive each month are now processed through e-invoicing. 72% of those invoices received are auto-matched in the system, so there is no intervention by any member of the team. We are saving approximately 6 man days each month on this process in the finance team. This has resulted in us being able to close our ledger earlier with quicker access to financial information to report to the management team. We're able to redirect the resource to other areas. There is improved visibility of invoices in query as this is dealt with through Expedient and not through emails being passed around in spreadsheets. This is providing better information to our procurement team and reducing their workload around queries as well. Over the next 6 months, we plan to roll e-invoicing out to all of our suppliers. Our target is to save a minimum of 10 man days each month, and we expect to be able to achieve this. Over the next 12 months, we will be expanding our use of Expedient even further. We are now looking at the digital journey for our subcontractors through use of the supplier portal. This takes Expedient further into our business, and the new teams involved are excited by the potential they are seeing. We're also progressing on contract management. We're working on efficiencies being achieved in the commercial department through the subcontract and contract management modules over the coming months. I'm really excited by the work that we're going to be doing and the progress we've made to date with the support of the Expedient team, and I look forward to what comes next. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the wonderful insights. I will now invite Ankit De to expound upon electronic invoice processing. Ankit, your turn. Take it over.
Thank you. Thank you, Vivek, and thank you, Dawn. Hello, welcome everyone. I'm Ankit. Bill Gates has rightly said, the first rule of any technology used in a business is that automation applied to an efficient operation will magnify the efficiency. This thus backs our idea of invoicing via automation, also known as e-invoicing. So in today's agenda, the first thing we'll look at is the differences between the manual invoicing process and the automated invoicing, thereby giving you an overview of the benefits of using the automated process. As the technology has been available for almost 2 decades now, we will give you an overview of the traditional e-invoicing and its aspects, which has led to its low acceptance in the construction industry. And finally, we'll look at how expedient e-invoicing is apt for construction industry. Before we proceed, let us quickly look at the methods in which invoices are matched in the construction industry. The first method is the three-way matching, wherein a purchase order is raised, items are received at site, which is confirmed via a receipt note, and finally, invoices are matched against the receipt confirmation. The second method is two-way matching, wherein the business might choose to match the invoices directly against the order without actually creating a good receipt note. A classic example of such invoices are invoices raised for services. Finally, the third kind of invoices are the standalone invoices, which are directly booked in the system without an order. For example, a one-off legal fees or statutory payments. In Expedient, for goods or material items, users can manually create a good receipt note on their handheld device or on their systems, whereas in case of plant, Expedient possesses the capability to automatically create good receipt note on the basis of on-hire and off-hire dates. Further, I'm sure we would all agree that the cycle of booking an invoice begins with receiving the invoice from the supplier, recording or classifying the invoices on supplier basis, matching the invoices, managing disputes or mismatches, and finally posting the invoice in accounts and archiving the invoice copy. Thus, this forms our basis for comparison between the manual invoicing and automated invoicing. In case of manual invoicing, the invoices can be received either via email or via post. Whereas in case of most automated invoicing systems, invoices are received by emails only and are automatically read by the system. Automatic reading of invoices is possible in Expedient because of the step Invoice Learning. This step allows you to map various fields and captions on the invoice for the system to identify the values. Invoice Learning is a one-time activity which gets copied across to all the companies if done for one. This step also helps in validating the VAT registration number on the invoice against the VAT registration number recorded in the master data. If the learning is done successfully for one of the invoices from a supplier, it is convenient to say that all the invoices received thereafter will be read accurately by the system. The next step while booking an invoice is invoice recording. Recording an invoice is quite cumbersome when it is done manually. If the invoice is received by post, it includes categorizing the invoice by supplier, scanning the invoice, and saving it in designated file location. Whereas if received by email, a user has to download the invoice and store it in file locations. This is not the case in e-invoicing because as the invoices are received by emails, they are categorized and stored in the desired file locations directly by the system. In Expedient, this whole process can be seen in the scan batch register, which is basically a report that displays all the invoices or documents received in Expedient with the status of the invoice. You can also view the audit history, preview the invoice, and even drill down to the system booked invoice. Thus, what we have achieved with Expedient e-invoicing is 100% automation as Expedient categorizes invoices by suppliers and even stores them in designated file locations. The next step in booking an invoice is matching it with the orders or the good receipt notes. Manual matching includes matching the invoices with the physical copy of receipt confirmation or notes created in the system. Many companies still prefer that the invoices be approved by the relevant department prior to booking the invoice to confirm the receipt or the liability. In e-invoicing, this whole process is redundant as the invoices are booked automatically if the invoice value matches the balance PO amount or the GRN amount. Expedient e-invoicing does the same, but it also facilitates the matching process by actually populating all the field values that the system was able to recognize from the invoice and allowing the user to only handle the exceptions in the step e-invoice processing. Users can manually modify the field values and even preview the invoice as well as add annotations to the invoice copy if needed. This step thus supports an entire gamut of functions which support the invoice matching process. Thus, if invoice value matches the balance PO amount or the GRN amount, Expedient demonstrates 100% automation on that front as well. All of us know that managing disputes related to invoices is a formidable task usually undertaken by the accounts team. Thus, without a robust system, it takes a lot of effort to follow up with the various stakeholders and keep a track on the recent status of the communication. This process is streamlined in Expedient by using the query management element in e-invoicing. All internal communication can happen within Expedient, and external communication is done through emails generated via Expedient. All of this is also recorded in the audit history. When a query is raised, Expedient basically categorizes the query types based on the user forwarded queries or cost correction queries for the receiving stakeholder. The stakeholder, for example, the buyer, can preview the invoice, drill down to the order, and even tag an invoice confirming that a credit note can be expected for the cost correction. All these functions can not only be performed in the core application, but can be done in mobile application as well, thus leading to a thorough process optimization. Once the invoices are tagged for credit notes, the credit notes can be processed in Expedient as well as on receipt. This is possible through e-invoice credit note matching step. Here, the common functions allow you to modify the details, review the credit note, and can be matched with the system created debit note on a click of a button. The final step to book the invoice includes posting the invoice and archiving it for future reference. In the manual process, the onus is on the user to create the invoice header, attach the soft copy of the invoice to the system invoice, and even remove the invoice document from the invoice folder so that the invoice folder shows only the outstanding invoices to be actioned. Well, Expedient fills all the fields in the header and attaches the invoice, which leaves only the exception to be handled manually. In case an invoice is entirely matched by Expedient e-invoicing, the invoices are automatically posted and are eligible for payment. The journal posting of such invoices happen instantaneously on approval. Thus, the automation here prevents the entire manual labor of attaching invoices to the system and posting the accounting entries via journals. A study published by Bentley suggests that for e-invoicing or automated invoicing, you can generate about 64% of savings on the cost of each invoice across all the individual steps that we just discussed. This is quite significant saving when compared with paper-based or manual invoicing. Now let us look at how e-invoicing has worked traditionally and how expedient e-invoicing stands out. First, in traditional e-invoicing, used by many invoicing systems even till date, require the supplier to send invoices to third-party channels either in the XML, XPDF, image PDF, or paper copy scanned format. These invoices are further picked by the main contractor's software system and are processed accordingly. This increases the infrastructure cost for both the supplier and the invoice recipient. That comes with the third-party channels, be it their annual subscription, maintenance, or license costs. Traditional e-invoicing systems also have an approach which can be categorized in three types. These are classic approach, which focuses on the major suppliers first who subscribe to third-party channels, followed by the pressing approach, which goes a step further by promoting e-invoicing by agreeing contracts with the supplier who would agree with the terms of e-invoicing. The third and the final approach is the power play approach, which is an aggressive version of the pressing approach. The only addition being the enforcing of penalties if the suppliers do not subscribe to third-party channels. As you can see, the share of e-invoices depends on the approach selected. Now, according to our experience, what we have also noticed is that the efficiency of traditional e-invoicing systems is significantly lesser because they accept invoices in the formats which lead to low accuracy. These are paper scan copy and image PDF file formats. Thus, with expedient e-invoicing, what we have tried to do is address the two major pain areas that we just discussed. That is, by removing the dependency on the third-party channels for infrastructure, and second, the rejection of the incoming invoices in the paper scan copy and image PDF file formats. Expedient thus utilizes your existing infrastructure, thereby negating any additional costs, and demonstrates higher accuracy by accepting the standard file format. As a result, with no change management and zero additional cost for suppliers, the expedient approach comfortably targets gaining around 95% of invoice shares within the first 3 months, regardless of the size of supplier. Unlike other e-invoicing systems, suppliers are not forced to register with the third-party channels, and the text PDF, which can be generated from almost all the systems, having higher percentage of matching, is focused on in expedient e-invoicing. By now, I'm sure we all have understood and agree that expedient e-invoicing is an evolved version of e-invoicing. Thus, the saving potential is not just the same as the traditional e-invoicing, but reaps better results because there is no learning curve for suppliers and the savings are realized immediately. On the same platform, it supports standalone invoices. It relies on text PDFs, which are generated by all systems. And finally, through EDI or electronic data interchange, the process of invoicing can be made 100% contactless. To finally sum it up, what we're trying to achieve by expedient e-invoicing is to reduce paperwork, cost on invoicing, and dependency on phone calls and emails for communication. Expedient e-invoicing also targets at optimally using the existing resources to save costs. With quicker invoice processing times, it is sure to lead to improved supply relations. And with lesser or absolutely no paper usage throughout the process, it is safe to say that it's greener and much more environment friendly. Therefore, expedient e-invoicing is sure to give you the return on investment that you would seek from an e-invoicing system. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankit. Thank you very much. Really a great research work and a great presentation. Now is the time for Q&A. So basically, I am going to look at if there are any questions raised by our audience, and then Ankit and Rishabh, depending upon whether the question is related to e-invoice or supplier portal, I will direct it towards you. Let me just read. Okay, right. So first one, an interesting one. This one comes to you, Ankit. Let me read it. If supplier sends multiple invoice attachments in a single email, Will Expedient reject email or read all the invoices?
Indeed, Vivek, that's an interesting question because yes, Expedient is capable of recognizing invoices individually, regardless, even if they're sent on a single email. Expedient can categorize them and read them individually and process them. So the invoices will be booked individually in the system as well. So the answer to that question is yes.
Second question. Okay. This one, I think no one out of UK team will be able to answer. And I think our team in India will get back to this because the question is e-invoicing supported in India? My answer would be yes, but let my Indian team get back to the attendees. And now is another question. Rishabh, this is for you. This reads, is the flow of information from portal to core application a real-time flow?
Thank you for the question, Vivek. Interesting one. Yes, as part of the digital drive and value engineering, it's very critical that the flow of information is real time from the portal to the core application and vice versa. So Expedient is doing the exact same thing. The transfer of information is real time, which is giving people more power to make decision. So better decision making because of the flow of information.
Thank you, Rishabh. Thank you. I hope it addresses the answer. Okay. Next, this one. This is for you, Ankit. Okay. Our group has multiple companies. Will our suppliers be sending invoices to different email addresses for each company? Or is it a single address for the group company? Over to you, Ankit.
Yeah, so to answer that question, Vivek, there will be just one email ID on which the suppliers will be expected to send the invoices on. The key element on an invoice is the purchase order reference number. So for the system to identify the company, it is important that the purchase order reference number is correctly mentioned on the invoice. With the purchase order reference, the system can identify the project and thereafter can identify the company. So it can cater to multiple companies setup or configuration as the case may be. And yeah, the element, I mean, to answer that question, it will be just one email ID on which the invoices can be sent by the supplier.
Okay, so basically we have to educate the suppliers that they must mention the purchase order number on the invoices. And that will take care of e-invoicing, if I understand it correctly, Ankit.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Right. I think this is the last question I will go for. If one invoice runs multiple pages, will Expedient match the same, or Expedient expect one page invoice only? I think that's a simple one for you, Ankit.
Yes, it is a simple one. So you can have as many pages on an invoice and the system will just look for the total values on an invoice, be it the total VAT value and the total invoice amount, and that's all it will look out. So your page, the supplier invoices can go for a number of pages regardless. System will be able to comfortably identify the values on the invoice.
Good. Thank you. So some very good questions from a very attentive and intelligent attendees. I'm really honored by such participation. Thank you very much, all the attendees. Finally, on behalf of Expedient, I would like to thank all the attendees for their participation in this event. With this, we conclude our today's session. Namaskar, Shabak Khair, goodbye.